This is Chad. He's an expert. This is me. I am not an expert. Listen to Chad.
Well, let's do this. I have quite a few things I want to talk to you about. But first of all, why don't you introduce yourself and tell everybody what you do for Reed Mariculture?
Yeah, so my name is Chad Clayton. I work for Reed Mariculture. We make a product line called Reef Nutrition and another one for aquaculture called Instant Algae. And I'm involved in quite a few aspects here at the farm. Primarily, when I came on about 12 years ago, I was brought on to grow copepods for the company. And I have a lot of experience in aquaculture. I've worked for oceans, reefs, and aquariums, breeding clownfish and a number of marine ornamentals. I worked out in Hawaii doing food fish. And so a lot of those jobs required live feed organisms. And so I got a lot of experience with that and came to work for the Reeds.
All right. So today's topic, now you have to remember, you're talking to me and my audience is beginners. And I remember the last time we chatted, you dropped a butt ton of science on me and it just went way over my head. All right. So you're going to have to dumb it down for me today. But we want to talk about refugiums, why they're good, how to set them up, different kinds of pods, so on and so forth. Let's start with why should somebody, a beginner, consider setting up a refugium? What are the benefits of setting up a refugium in their tank?
You know, one of the primary benefits that I've noticed in the hobby over the years and what people prefer to do when setting up a refugium is to house things like macroalgae. It acts as a natural filter. It will strip out nitrogenous waste, so nitrate, nitrite, ammonia, and they also pull out phosphates out of the water, and they use these compounds to grow. And so as the macroalgae grows, you can trim it. You know, you can cut the biomass in half, remove the macroalgae, you know, toss it in the garbage, toss it in your garden, let it decompose, and then the macroalgae continues to grow and absorb nutrients and you know, rinse and repeat, so to speak. Along those lines, you know, macroalgae is a great habitat for organisms like copepods.
Do you have any recommendations for a simple setup of like the things they should buy in order to have success?
Basically, what you want to do is if you have a brand new tank, you don't want to add any pods right off the bat. You want to let the tank cycle a little bit, even if you're adding bacteria. You want to let things like algae, there's certain, you know, species of algae that come along as you're cycling a tank, as the tank is growing and aging. Wait to see some of that algae growing in the tank. And a refugium needs habitat. You know, it can't just be a bare tank with nothing in it. You most certainly need habitat. So good habitat options are macroalgae, live macroalgae. It helps to have a light over the refugium, and some people will do 12 hours on, 12 hours off, and you know, give the macroalgae plenty of light to grow. And then as far as other habitat, there's artificial structures that you can put in there. What you want to do is you want to pay attention to a porous type of artificial structure. So rocks, even if they're artificial rocks or if they're rocks that came off of a reef or, you know, out of the ocean that were bleached, as long as they're very porous and they provide a lot of surface area for those animals to get inside of, reproduce, you know, their babies can grow in there, and it also just provides, you know, a really cool habitat for them, and they can get in there and eat detritus, eat organic waste, and so those, you know, and then obviously adding the copepods.
Okay, so I have a 120-gallon system, and I have a refugium set up. There's a good habitat there. For a 120-gallon system, is there some sort of ratio that I should be like, I should get this much to at least begin stocking the tank?
This is one of the hardest questions because biologically all tanks are different. And so, you know, typically, you know, if you're looking at like 100 gallons or less, you know, one bottle of each would be fine of those animals. Especially, you know, and this is assuming you have no predators, you're starting off fresh. They have, you know, a blank check, so to speak. They can just populate and go crazy. Then, yeah, you know, only a couple of bottles would be fine into the refugium.
So I get my shipment. I have everything set up. They arrive in the mail. Do I need to do anything special to introduce them? Turn off the pumps, acclimate? I mean, what do I have to do?
So we ship all of our copepods cold. And that just slows them down metabolically. They don't consume all the oxygen in the bottle in the very small volume of water that we put them in. You're gonna allow them to warm up. You do not need to float them in the tank like you would a fish or a coral to temperature acclimate. You don't need to do that. You can just simply set them near the tank or on a counter somewhere with the caps. You can just take off the cap completely or pop the cap. And that just allows for gas exchange. And then after they warm up, and this doesn't take that long, maybe an hour, maybe a couple hours. And then adding them. And so there's a couple of strategies here. So if you're just adding them to Refugium, you can add them at any time of day. You don't need to turn anything off because, typically your refugium is a very calm environment. There's no fish in there, no predators, nothing that's going to wipe them out instantly. And so adding them to a refugium, you can do that any time of day. I know some people that will actually submerge the bottle and stick it right into the rock, and the pods just crawl out of the bottle right into the rock.
We have the pods in, we've introduced them, and now we want them to thrive. We want them to reproduce because we don't want to necessarily have to get a new shipment in every week. We like to be able to make as much as we can. So how do we make sure that they have long-term success?
It really helps to have a refugium for long-term success of zooplankton. A refugium is a great place to feed those organisms. So to really get them to populate better, to do better, you just need to feed them more. They do really well if they're fed a lot of phytoplankton. Our customers do is they use our PhytoFeast, which is our 6 species blend of phytoplankton, the most concentrated on the market. And what they'll do is they'll feed the refugium instead of the display.
So we're talking a once a day sort of feeding?
Yes, it is most valuable to feed small amounts multiple times a day. We recommend 1 teaspoon per 100 gallons. They'll take that and cut it in half and do a half a teaspoon in the morning, half a teaspoon in the evening.
Well, that's cool. I mean, I know I learned a ton, and thank you for not using all that scientific jargon. I could tell at times you really wanted to, but then you were thinking, no. I'm just going to use simple words here. So I appreciate that. Okay, well, I appreciate your time. We're approaching the 45-minute Zoom limit because I don't have the fancy Zoom account. So
okay, perfect.
All right,
yeah,
well, you have a big work day, so I really appreciate it, Chad. Seriously, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We'll chat later.
Okay, adios.
All right, bye.